Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Corley from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and first apologies for the out-of-sync video footage here. I just kind of needed to open up with some narration to explain a simple point. First and foremost, yes, this video is about the ill-fated Sega Pluto prototype, and you'll hear all about it in just a moment. I'm kind of putting this into my Rare Variants series, even though obviously the thing never really came out. Much like the Nintendo PlayStation prototype, where I threw that in there, I also put that in one of my generation recaps, but it doesn't really matter. But unlike the Nintendo PlayStation prototype, which was awesome to also have access to, I was able to film that in a quiet, private space, so the audio turned out pretty decent. In this case, while it was awesome to get access to the prototype, we filmed it at a place called AFK XP in Campbell, California, through association with the Retrofix. And unfortunately, what that meant is that place was an active store slash like gaming parlor. So as a result, while we were able to turn off all the TVs and wait for like the quietest time to actually film it, the problem was there are still people in the background talking. So the audio in this video is not particularly great, so I do apologize for that. But on the plus side, I got a brand new camera, so the video quality is much better. Yes, I've reached that point. So yeah, guys, we're trading off. 2020, we get better video, but worse audio, at least in this particular video. And hopefully we'll get to revisit the Pluto down the road. But regardless, check it out. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, and enjoy the video. This is the elusive Sega Pluto prototype. There are only 2 of these known to exist in the entire world. So what I'm going to do today is give you a basic rundown of what it is, and then have an interview with its current owner and tell you like how we ended up in possession of this. So basically, there's not much information out there on this thing at this point in time, but as far as we know, in about 1999, Sega went into production briefly for this. This is a version of the Sega Saturn that well, as you can see, is much bigger compared to the original version of the Sega Saturn. This is the Model 1. There, of course, was a Model 2. You might think of this as a Model 3. Unfortunately, on this particular unit, the disc lid is damaged. However, the unit does work. If you hold it down, you can play games. It plays North American games only. It does not play Japanese or European games. However, it does have the memory card slot. So if you put an Action Replay in there, you would get region-free compatibility. On the back, it uses the exact same hookups, essentially, as the Sega Saturn. It's got the standard 2-prong power supply, as well as the composite S-Video and RGB out. We don't have the capacity to test RGB, but we assume it functions just fine. It has the link capabilities that the original did. On the back, it also has the memory slot for the watch battery, so you can save your games, and it has the VCD slot as well. The thing that makes this unique, other than just the design of it, is that it also has the Netlink modem built on board. So presumably this was Sega at some point having the idea of expanding the Saturn for future internet capabilities for online play. Now eventually they evolved that idea into the Dreamcast, and that's what we ultimately got. This is, and on the front we have the power button, which illuminates red when activated, the open button, which normally would be propped up if this wasn't damaged, and the reset button as well. It works perfectly fine. We did notice that on controller 1, we did play it for a little bit. It has the same issue that a lot of Saturns have, where over time the pins bend and then the controller doesn't work without lifting it. So to play this particular unit, you kind of have to hold both at the same time, but it does actually work. So I think it's fascinating that we're sitting here with a 1 of 2 prototype in the world. As far as I can tell though, it just seems like the usual Sega story where they had this idea of doing something and then they changed that idea and then they just, you know, showed up. We believe that Sega of America designed these because the only 2 that have ever surfaced have both shown up in California, where Sega was once based, or at least San Francisco area is where they're from. So the thing with this though is it's, again, presumed to have been released or was intended to be released in 1999, the same year the Dreamcast launched in North America, which was already out in Japan. But that's not surprising. Sega had a history of doing that. They released the Saturn in Japan before they released the 32X anywhere else. So they were always kind of weird about their hardware and not shy of making new versions and new editions without really thinking about the consequences. So ultimately, yes, this was never actually released, but essentially this is what the Sega Saturn could have eventually evolved into. I'm kind of surprised this was never released in Japan, actually, because the Saturn was ridiculously popular there, yet here, not so much. So for this to have come, presumably, from the Sega of America division is interesting. Maybe it gives us a glimpse into what Sega of America thought the future of the Saturn could have been, which was if it was online, maybe that would have worked out better for them. And like I said, they pretty much threw that idea into the Dreamcast. So Yeah, as far as at this point in time, given what the public knows about it, that's really all there is to say from my perspective. We have an interview now with Roger. He is the owner of this device. So as I mentioned before, this thing, to confirm, it only plays one region of games, which would be North American versions of games. And it does not play European versions natively or Japanese versions natively. Don't you like how we just had these all set up? Our buddies over here at RetroFix had all this stuff ready to go. So thank you for that. But anyway, so how did you get this thing?
You know what? I found out at a flea market. I went and I was walking around, and a dude had a table with all kinds of random stuff. It had like power tools and like VCRs, and this was in there. And then I asked him how much. He said $5. I offered him $3, and I've had it ever since.
You got this thing for $3.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'll give you $5. You want? I'll give you your money back and then some.
We'll talk around the $6 mark.
Oh wow. Okay. No, that is incredible though. I mean, what has this done for you? Has this changed anything for you? I mean, what's it like? Because I know there was some media coverage of this when you initially got it.
Yeah, you know what? Initially, I'd heard about the other one, and then so I brought mine out, and then I did kind of the eBay thing, and that didn't really work out. And then there was the Game Gavel thing for a second, that didn't really work out. And then I really haven't done much with it. It really hasn't changed too much, but then I just took it out over to the other Gamer Expo in Sacramento.
Oh, Sac Gamer Expo, yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was at that one in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I recall correctly, basically, like was it like 2013? There was one unit of these that showed up on the internet.
Yes.
And then you saw that.
Yeah.
And then you basically went, "Oh, dude, I got that."
Yeah.
Like, what kind of luck is that? That's insane. But yeah, is there anything else you would want to tell us about it?
Yeah, again, I'd just like to get more exposure. I'd like more people to see it. I'd like to take it out to some more shows and stuff to kind of get the buzz out there for that. Again, people need to see it. It's really rad.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but right now you're not looking to sell, you're looking to take it on tour.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind taking it out to some shows and kind of...
You hear that, retro gaming conventions? This guy's got a super, like, basically one-of-a-kind prototype from Sega history. And we're in the 60th anniversary of Sega, so I don't know, I'm just saying this might be a good idea to have that floating around out there. It's fascinating. It's just so bizarre to actually see it, because this thing was like a rumor for the longest time, and then to see that it's basically just it's a Saturn. It functions like a Saturn. The BIOS that comes up is exactly like a Saturn. The name Pluto, interestingly, do you know why it's called a Pluto?
No.
All right, I'm going to teach you something about your own device. Sega had some weird obsession with planets, so the 32X's project name was Mars. Saturn was ultimately the Saturn. Neptune was a version of the 32X, and the Genesis that were supposed to be in one unit was never released. So you own the last in that planetary line.
And
Which
it's
it's no longer a planet, but it should be a planet because it's much more.
I was just gonna say that was the whole controversy. It wasn't a planet, then it was a planet.
But it's much more interesting as a planet. Hey, bonus! We're doing a little bit of extra content, so we're joined by Rudy, who you saw a moment ago.
Hey, I run the RetroFix in Campbell, California, which is located inside of AFK XP.
Now, what exactly is your connection to this? How do you know Roger? How did you bring this into the public forum?
Okay. Well, back in 2013, I actually met Roger. Because I actually was just starting out my business. A humble guy just selling some video games on the side, just trying to make a living. And lo and behold, one day I get a phone call from a friend of Roger's who told me that, hey, we happen to have the Sega Pluto. We're looking for a network adapter to see if we can test this thing out. Nobody had one. I happen to have one because, like again, I said, I was being very active online. And so I actually went out because Roger, he lives a little ways from me, but not terribly far. I can't exactly say where. But went out and met with him. Nobody had ever actually seen this thing. This is the number 001 prototype of the Sega Pluto. And once he showed it to me, that was it. Nobody has seen this thing for the last 7-8 years.
You know what's really funny about it, because you mentioned the network support. So Sega Saturn network support actually still works because it's peer-to-peer. So I will bet you that you can play online with that now in 2020.
Oh, with the landline? Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
dope.
I promise you it works. Unless for some reason the actual hardware doesn't,
Yeah.
but I bet it does. Because everything else about this thing works just as if
Yeah,
it
it's
was a
super
final.
clean.
Yeah, as if it was a final release unit, which is, I mean, it's just cool as shit to see this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one day maybe you can play online with people using the Pluto.
Oh, that'd be dope.
I'm just
Be
saying
down
it's
for that.
it's a possibility.
Get down some Duke Nukem.
Yeah. Yeah, Netlink
Duke Nukem.
Edition, right on.
Yes,
Yes, yeah. I had to
yeah.
go through my brain and be like, yep, that is one of like the 5 games that did actually work. But there are a few out there.
The first time this was actually seen publicly was back at the December Sat Gamers Expo 2019.
Yep.
I was working with Chris Modica, who's the show's promoter for Sacramento, and you know, we're trying to upscale the guests as far as who we can get to come out.
Right. So in 2018, I was a guest. They decided that wasn't good, so they got better guests. He was right.
Well,
seriously, that's a better guest. That's a better draw.
I actually didn't really come into contact with Chris on a level where he and I would be working together until mid 2019. And so as we're trying to brainstorm who we can bring in, I thought to myself, you know what? I have a buddy who has this, you know, rare prototype. Nobody's seen it since me. You know, so he's like, are you kidding me? This guy has this thing. He's like, why did you not say something sooner? I was like, well, you know, it is what it is, and I know my buddy likes to kind of keep a low profile. You know, just depends on how he feels. And so we got him out, and it was the very first time people actually got to see it.
And now you guys have all got to see it, so thank you very much, Roger, for allowing that to happen, and hopefully continuing your tour around the world, potentially with this thing. Do you wish him well on that?
I wish it had been my collection personally, but you know, I wish Roger well. I mean, I'm glad we're actually kind of able to get this set up, and I know you went through a lot of trouble, Adam, to make arrangements to actually make this happen, just to bring this coverage to you know to the fans.
Thank you goes to both of them, because I would not have been able to do this if it weren't for obviously him giving us consent, and him for being like, oh, by the way, I can hook you up with this. This actually worked out as an amazing coincidence. I'll probably see you a lot actually, because we're going to go on a lot of convention tours. I'm sure that's going to happen. You not so much.
Big things are happening.
Big things are happening.
Big things hopefully are happening.
Absolutely.
So anything else you guys want to say to everybody?
Shout out to Joe Sullivan. If you don't know about his game museum, check it out. That shit is killer. He's got an array of rare, not just prototypes, but just rare stuff.
Rare everything.
Yeah, if you haven't checked him out, Google him. He's
absolute history.
Fantastic. Cool, absolutely. Super cool dude.
And if you're on the Instagrams, make sure you give me a follow at the Retrofix. Also follow my business partners, AFK XP Gamer Lounge, located in Campbell, California, and Level Up. It's a gastropub and bar. We got arcades, PCs, consoles, literally the mecca of video gaming. We got it all. If you want to have a good time, kill some hours throughout the weekend, come check us out.
There you go. You can also follow me, but whatever, who cares? Anyway, that stuff's in the description if you want to check that out. In all seriousness, though, thank you guys very much for please like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you to the both of you so much for letting this happen. Thank you guys. See you all later.
Sega!